Welcome to the New Dawn podcast. I'm your host, Dawn Lucht. This podcast is for those who are ready to find emotional and mental freedom and expand into the total essence of you. And as your coach and guide, I can see what most people cannot see, and I dare to say what most people daren't say. I bring hope, clarity, healing, expansion, and massive amounts of love into your life and your relationships. What I know about healing and success is that it starts with believing that you're the most important relationship in your own life, and to commit to loving yourself is the most rebellious, courageous, and empowering act you will ever give yourself in this lifetime. In today's podcast, you find Ben and I having a late night conversation about how important it is in the health of our relationship to make sure that there are no taboo subjects, that we are able to talk about absolutely everything, especially the really, really difficult stuff. We wanted to bring you this conversation because we use these tools all of the time. We have to, for the sake of not repeating past patterns that we've both been caught out in previous relationships, and making sure that we really give ourselves the best possible opportunity to grow our love together and connection with each other. This is what we do. This is how we do it. And I really do believe that this is one of the most important and successful parts of our relationship. So I hope you enjoy the conversation. Hi everyone. I wanted to have a little chat with you about something that Ben and I were talking about this weekend. I just want to preface our conversation today with the fact that we've done a lot of travelling this weekend and I am very tired. So if it sounds like my thoughts are a little bit disjointed, it is because I'm struggling with words. But what I wanted to bring to the table today and highlight the importance of... Oh, even you're yawning.
I'm good.
You're good. Was the fact that Ben and I have really cultivated one of the most important and fundamental aspects of our relationship, which is there's nothing off the table. All conversations, all topics, everything we talk about, even the uncomfortable, even the stuff we don't want to talk about, even everything. And you don't get to this age or have this kind of experience in life without having had some life experience. And life experience generally means that you've had some sort of wounded heart, you've created some armouring, some stuff has come up, and it makes you feel reactive, maybe, and on edge. And what we've come to realise is that if you don't talk about everything, if you... Oh, are you all right?
Yes.
If we compartmentalise, like, oh, can't talk about that in our couple, can't talk about this in our couple, can't do this and can't do that, then it starts to create secrecy and hiding and disconnection from each other. And for both of us to heal, for both of us to really be creating a safe space for each other in this relationship, we have really worked hard on talking about everything and making sure that nothing's off the table, which means that sometimes I come to you with questions and you ask me questions and vice versa. What the difficult questions, like, what do you think about that? What's really going on here? Tell me about what your thought process was about this, or how do you really feel about this? And we show up as best as we can with the information that we've got at that moment, doing our best to answer the question. What's been your experience of that, Ben? And what do you think the benefit of doing it in that way has been?
I think if I was going to say anything about it, if there's something that it's, I suppose recently the interesting thing that we've talked about is transparency, really, and what that really is and really means. And I'm guessing, well, I don't know if people really know what transparency in a relationship is or anything, but I think we've kind of come, or at least I certainly have come to the opinion myself, is that if there's something that feels awkward or not great about talking to you about, then it's probably a good thing to talk to you about. Because sometimes the hardest sort of things to talk about are the things that you kind of start second guessing how the other person's going to react, rather than trusting that the other person's going to at least be open to the conversation, and trusting that they need to make sure that they, don't know whether moderate is the right word, but let's use it in this case, moderate their reaction to it, their emotions. And it's one of those things where saying a thing, as long as you're not being an arsehole about it, it's not your responsibility to look after what the other person is going to think or feel from what you say or what you ask or what you talk about, unless you are being abusive or purposely doing something to
vindictive,
create
or
a
malicious.
reaction. Malicious, yeah. If you're, say you want to go away with the lads or something like that, and you're feeling awkward about it in a bloke's, I'm talking from a bloke's point of view, and you don't want to really bring it up with to your partner because you think they're going to react in a bad way, and then you come in kind of umming and ahhing, thinking of excuses, rather than just saying, oh, you know what, I really want to go on this trip with the lads. I know we've done X, Y, Z, or we've not spent much time with each other, but this is an opportunity, blah, blah, blah. And just having a good talk about it. If there's a reason to hide that kind of thing, then there's an issue, really, isn't there? And that's when things start getting more difficult.
I think at the core of everything that you and I have created and continue to create has been the highlighting and the importance of having a safe space between us, which means that we're both responsible for our own thoughts and feelings and behaviours, and we don't blame, shame, judge the other person. We don't bring criticism, resentment into our relationship, and we say what we're gonna, we do what we're gonna do, and we act with kindness. Obviously, both of us make mistakes, and that's kind of the point of talking about this. But the fundamental part of all of this is that we're creating a safe space upon which these really healthy behaviours can kind of sit upon. And I'm trying to put us out there as, experts in...
Or the perfect couple.
Yeah, the perfect couple.
Anything
Yeah.
like
No.
that. I mean, we're
like
absolutely experts and should definitely listen to what we say.
No, I just mean about the perfect couple. You're right. I'm definitely not saying that at all. But there are certain things about our relationship that work. And I know that these are often the things that work across the board for many people. One being creating a safe space for yourself, within yourself, and then creating it in your relationship. Doesn't matter who you are. If both people are showing up to create a safe emotional space between you, that's a game changer. And it means that when you come to these conversations that nothing's off the table, you don't automatically feel like you have to barrier up, armor up. You can come in feeling nervous and vulnerable, and which is normal, right?
Yeah.
But still know that if you want to create emotional intimacy or connection, then you have to talk about everything. Well, at least that's what works for us, is to be able to say, okay, no matter what comes up in life, whether it's a money issue or a relationship issue or a work, it doesn't matter. At least we know that being able to talk about it really, really feels lighter, and like there's teamwork involved and connection, and it's something that I've never experienced in any of my relationships before, to be so supported and understood. And what we both do is stay curious about what the other person means, and we do all the normal things of active listening and a lot of the skills and the tools we talk about in our couples communication stuff, which is the active listening, but also reflecting back what the other person says
and clarifying
and
asking the right questions,
not getting defensive. But what do you think what difference has creating a safe space where you can talk about anything? What kind of change has that, or what benefit has that offered you?
What benefit? It just means there's no stress, really. When we have something that we're not sure about, questions we need to ask, whenever something's happened or is happening for either of us, and we can tell that we can tell each other, we can tell each other's mood has changed in some way, can't we?
Yeah.
I'm either a bit more subdued, or you're climbing up the walls, or
or subdued as well.
No, mostly subdued, actually. We both kind of go subdued, don't we, when we've got things on our mind. But it doesn't take much to just kind of talk about it and go, oh, it's this or it's that, or it's nothing important. It means we don't have to dwell on things, because what I was going to say is the worst thing in relationships is when you're both there dwelling on something, you're not talking about it, and you can feel that wrench in the gut just building up. There's like that stress or panic or anxiety or whatever else you're feeling, and it's so much easier to just get it out as quickly as you can, and just talk about it, whatever it is, whether it's a money problem, whether it's someone's had their face hit by a branch, or I don't know, anything really.
Well, that's such a random... If you don't know what's happened to Drew, my son, recently when he went to a forest and...
Well, you don't have to tell him, I was just throwing
I know, but it was just such a random thing to say.
Sorry, I've got a bit of a cough.
The other thing I was going to add is, from my experience, from not being able to talk or feeling like there are certain subjects that are absolutely not able to go to and talk about, it means that I have felt very lonely and isolated in what's supposed to be the most least lonely and the least isolating relationship. You're intimate with somebody, that means something. And so to feel like I have to keep something or go through something just on my own because I can't share it, I can't talk about it, never helped. It never made me feel closer to the other person. Whereas one of the things that I've really noticed is that by being able to talk about everything, and even especially the really, really hard stuff, right? You and I always seems to make us feel closer and more emotionally intimate afterwards, which is not what I would have imagined. Like, you think you're bringing these big subjects or these shameful subjects or hard or difficult ones to the couple, to our conversations. You think the other person's going to turn around and judge you for whatever you're saying, or shame you, or reject you, or, and yet to be in a situation where that's completely not the case is, well, at first it's a little bit unsettling and unfamiliar. And then when you settle into that a bit more, well, it still takes practice, doesn't it? We're still practicing that.
Yeah. But again, we've got to emphasise you've got to have a partner who's you're safe with and won't react in a crappy way.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's not going to work, is it? It just makes everything worse. But yeah, I find that when we talked about things, the reason we're closer afterwards is because there's not that anxiety or weird barrier that stops people getting close. I think when you're either hiding stuff or worried about stuff, you tend not to want to go close to someone in case they figure it out. You've got that thing in your head, haven't you, that's going, oh no, they'll see right through me, all that. And so you automatically try and distance yourself. And you don't just distance yourself in a physical way, you end up distancing yourself in an emotional way, mental way, all sorts of ways, really.
I've noticed, like, even this weekend, you took a step towards talking to me about something that you were considering whether or not talking to me about. And what if somebody else is, and then you brought it to the table and it was a conversation we had and you felt a lot better afterwards. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
So if somebody else is in that situation and they know that their partner's safe, or you're learning to practice safety, but you've still got a history of keeping stuff for yourself because you're worried about how the other person's going to be, or you're worried about being rejected or whatever. What suggestions do you have any suggestions for somebody who's feeling like that?
Feeling unsafe,
no,
but has a safe partner?
Feeling like they are second guessing themselves of whether or not to say anything.
But they've got a safe partner to talk to them about.
Yeah.
I suppose the best thing to do, one of the things with this kind of stuff is there's never an absolutely perfect time. If you're worried about talking to your partner about any of this sort of stuff, you're always thinking, well, maybe not always, but a lot of the time there's that thought in your head, oh, it's got to be the perfect time. I've got to set it up just right. I've got to get the place right and all that sort of stuff. And there's never really a perfect time to do it. So it's one of those things where you just kind of got to do it. And
like
the sooner,
the
sooner you do it, the better, really, because then it's not making you more anxious. It's not building up inside you, which then makes it seem even harder to do because you've kind of prepped for the worst, but in the worst way. I think that's one of the best bits of advice, is do it as quickly as you can. If you need to have a think about it, then it's not terrible, but you don't want to just keep thinking about it or going, oh, this is a bad time, this is a bad time, this is a bad time. You kind of just got to do it. That's
a really good point. I think the one...
I've got a question for you.
Oh, okay.
So when you're preparing your partner for this sort of thing, a lot of the time you'll say to me, oh, I've got something I want to talk to you about, or I've got a question for you. Is it okay if I ask you the question? And then, because I'm hilarious, I go, no. Or I don't know. It depends what the question. What would your advice be for, say, preparing the other person? How would you go about getting the other person ready for, I don't know, whatever thing is coming up?
So that's a really great question, and it was leading into what I was about to say as well. So That's good. If you are somebody who... I think it's really important to make sure that you're checking in with the other person to ask them if it is an appropriate time to talk about it. Because if they're in the middle of doing something and their attention's elsewhere, if you start talking to them, if you're bringing something that feels vulnerable already to the table, then if you're not getting their full attention, it might make you feel like, oh, they're not even listening anyway. So that's why I ask you those questions, because I want your full attention, and this matters to me, and I want you to know that it matters to me, but I also want it to be at a time which is convenient to you. Not convenient, but you're ready to be present with me.
Yeah.
And so I will say to you, hey, is this a good time? And most of the time you say yes. If not, then we'll schedule it for a little bit later. So I always approach it that way. And then the other thing I'd say is make sure that I always make sure that I'm as emotionally regulated as possible first. And what that means is I know that if I bring a charged feeling into this conversation, then the likelihood is the outcome will be escalated and even more exaggerated and charged. So I might feel nervous and anxious about talking to you about something, but if I'm triggered, then I know I need to deal with the trigger first, that releasing of that charge of the feeling inside of me before I can bring myself to this conversation. I might still feel all the feels. I might cry. I might, I don't know, just feel vulnerable and all that kind of stuff, which is normal. But I wouldn't be really highly charged and activated before coming into the conversation, because I know that my perception of you, my perception of what you say and how you reply will be altered by how I interpret it because of my emotional state. So that's key for these big conversations for me, is to make sure that I feel as calm as I possibly can, even though I might feel bubbly inside.
Another good thing that you do, and to be honest, I don't really do these things. I just assume you're going to be all right and then talk to you about stuff, but maybe I should do this more. But you'll say, oh, can I talk to you about something? It's nothing bad, or it's nothing... And you preface what we're going to talk about with...
You don't have to get
don't
worried.
Panic about it, because one of the things... It's like if you're at work and you get the manager saying, oh, we need to have a meeting or something like that, and you're thinking, oh, God, what have I done now? And it's probably nothing bad, but it's, like a review or something, and they don't tell you, and then you're panicking until the time it happens. I think it's always a good idea to preface the talking or the talk or asking the questions and stuff with whether it's serious, whether it's important, whether it's just a question about whether white should go in with the coloureds or something. I don't know.
That's a pretty quick one too.
Or when the bloke's going to mow the lawn. It's been 6 months now and the grass is getting pretty long.
Those are random things.
I'm a random guy.
That's true.
But yeah, it's good to sort of preface the thing with, hey, this ain't a bad thing. I just need to talk to you about something. Or, hey, there's something come up that we need to have a chat about.
Yeah.
As soon as you can.
And, you and I try and make sure that we're not bringing... the whole point of this is not to bring extra drama.
Yeah.
Not to create more emotional charge or stuff like that before we're talking. Our aim is to connect and to understand each other and to keep our hearts open to each other, isn't it, really? And if we bring more drama, it's likely the other person's going to barrier up. And I was listening to something the other day that talked about every time you have an argument, every time you have a disagreement, you can either be positively creating something positive out of it, or it's taking away, just every argument is taking something away from your relationship, like I don't know, like a Jenga game, and it just slowly starts to chip away. And I want always to be adding positively into this relationship, and even when these conversations are challenging, which they do get challenging, don't they? I want to feel like we give it the best possible compost to make it beneficial to us long term, rather than, adding more resentment or adding more rejection or adding more disconnection to it, because it's so much harder to, it's not impossible, but it's so much harder to keep repairing that than it is to
I think one of the recent ones that we had a conversation was we were talking about me moving in, and I'd like to make the joke that, oh yeah, in a couple of years, all that sort of stuff, but we're moving in next year. And I was I'd said October, didn't I? But yeah. I'd got it in my head that it was going to be October for some reason, and you had it in your head that it was going to be August, and you got upset about it.
Yeah.
Because I'd got my wires crossed and things, and so that was kind of a recent thing where you were feeling upset, and we didn't get a proper time to really talk about it until I think it was next day or something. Because where were we?
The kids were here, and
oh yeah,
their weekend.
That's it. Yeah, and so we didn't get to talk about it straight away. So it festered a little bit, but then we kind of cleared it all up. But that was a bit poo, wasn't it? Until we sorted it out.
It was a bit poo. I think
I've stopped making jokes about it now.
Well, what I said to you was that every time you make a joke about, it'll be a few years' time, it makes me feel bad.
Yeah.
And whilst you may be, we call it a joke for one, what you were doing was
it's a joke just for me.
Joke for you. It's a joke for one. And so, but it created an instability inside of me. And I was, at first, I was just trying to go along with the joke and, see the funny side of it. And then in the end, I was just like, actually, that makes me sad. And it did make me sad. And so I told you about it. And you didn't just go, oh, for God's sake, pull yourself together, or you're being so sensitive, or you didn't do any of those things. You were just like, oh, I'm actually sorry. And that was a joke for one. And even though I do find that funny, I know you don't, and I don't want to make you feel bad. Yep. And that meant a lot to me, so thank you.
That's all right.
You want to say a joke?
Oh, I do, yeah.
Honestly, well, that's a good opportunity to end, I think.
Yes.
So, thank you, honey, for this conversation. Thank you for leaning in to these difficult conversations that we have, and not pulling away or armouring up, but keep continuing to lean in and creating a really safe space for both of us. It matters and means a lot to me.
Ditto. No, I think we're getting better and better at doing all these sort of things, aren't we? Talking about these things, and because no one's perfect, and we both accept that as well, that we'll make mistakes, we'll say the wrong things, do the wrong things, buy the wrong bread, accidentally feed your dairy.
Oh my God.
That kind of stuff.
I mean, that has to be the
Yeah.
part of the safety foundation, isn't it? That we're gonna make mistakes. We've got to, like, we're just human. There's no possible way that we can get around it, and it's too much pressure to imagine that I only love you when you're perfect, and that you only love me if I'm perfect. Like, it's just impossible.
Plus, all the fun stuff happens when you make mistakes.
A lot of it does, yeah. All right, thank you.
No, thank you.
Thanks everyone for listening, and we'd love to hear your comments, your feedback, your thoughts. If you've got any questions you have that come out of this podcast,
Like, share, subscribe.
share, subscribe. Exactly. And in the meantime, take care of yourself, keep believing in yourself, and be kind to yourself. Love you.